We're at the European Business Summit in Brussels, and I'm joined now by Jerónimo Calderón, who is the Executive Director of an organisation called Euforia, which is a youth organisation, and he describes it as a self-help group for cynics. What exactly do you mean?
Well, basically it means that the very initial reason why we founded, or why I founded Euforia, was that I was so fed up with myself, with my own cynicism, that I had developed as a weapon to justify not getting involved in social or environmental causes. I was always saying, we need to do this, we need to do that, but I never walked the talk. And at age 22, I was like, come on, Jerónimo, how come you are not involved? And I started this entire reflection about thinking and identifying and realizing that it's representative for an entire generation. It's for Europe, the figures vary. It's between 70 to 80% of our generation who say, I would like to get involved in a project, but only 12 to 20% who actually do so. So there's a huge potential. And I think there's no point in, going to point the finger at them and telling, hey, you need to get active. It needs to be this self-help group kind of approach, peer-to-peer, where we get together and we say, okay, let's talk solutions.
So how does that talk of solutions translate into tangible action?
Well, basically what we say is, at the moment, there are plenty of impact opportunities, great things that you could do as a young person. The problem is that they're disconnected from the demand, from the young people, who are so cynic and lethargic and passive that they don't even make the effort to look what is there. So basically we're using viral marketing to reach out to them, to go tap on that potential that is unused, bring them to their events and connect them with the concrete opportunities. And we say, let's stop talking about all the things that go wrong. Let's start talking about the things I as a young person concretely can do. And that's what makes the switch. That's where Euphoria comes into play, where you're like, wow, there's so many things I can do. And I'm not alone.
So what kind of things are you actually doing?
We have three kinds of levels. The first one is changing my daily lifestyle. So they say, I start recycling, I start paying attention to what kind of products I buy, where I go on holidays, do I go by plane or not, etc. I start voting. There are volunteering opportunities that we present, so they start getting involved with the Swiss Red Cross, with the Worldwide Fund, WWF, with lots of little initiatives they don't know, and they launch their own projects. So I actually have here one I really like a lot that is called Refiller. So it's basically a group of young people came to our event and they said, I hate it at lunchtime. I go to fast food restaurant and I have a bulk of waste at the end. And why don't we just bring our own stuff? So they started with guerrilla marketing, having students bringing their Tupperware to fast food places to get it filled up. And now they produce bottles, they produce Tupperwares, coffee mugs that are refillable. And basically what they propose to restaurants is to advertise them as a refiller location. And the money they save on packaging, which can be actually really significant, gives a discount to the student who comes and brings it, and a part goes to refill it to finance.
So it's about sharing, it's a kind of self-help group, but it also seems to be very much about a structure and organisation which enables young people who feel perhaps slightly disenfranchised to really engage, and for the power of that younger generation to be harnessed.
Yes, definitely. I think it's basically what we try to do is empower our generation. We feel that at the moment there's plenty of discourse that is going on that is very condescending, looking at our generation as a lost generation, as the people that are lacking the skills, that are lacking the motivation. And we're trying to create a frame with a topic that really gets their passion out, which are topics like climate change, like racism, like poverty. We're the digital natives. We know what's going on in the world and we care about these things. So that's how we get them, and we show them they can make a valuable contribution. And I think thereby we also allow them to acquire the kind of skills they need afterwards to find a job. And I think, on the other hand, also for businesses to come and tap on that potential, on all of that creativity, those ideas, that dreaming the CEO of Solvay was talking about this morning.
Well, dreams are all very well, but you have to turn dreams into reality, and that's where the skills that we're talking about here come in. How do you see that developing? What do the companies, universities, education establishments, what do they need to do to develop the skills to plug those gaps?
Well, it's tough because I don't feel entitled to give an answer to that. You know, I'm really very focused on the individual empowerment of the young people. But what I see is actually not a lack of skills within youth. And often when we're talking about this mismatch, I think the mismatch is not between the skills needed and the skills available. The mismatch is between the kind of jobs and job environments that still date from a long time ago, that have worked very well for past generations, but that no longer match the values and culture of our generation, who are not looking for financial incentives. We're looking for responsibility, for learning new things, for less hierarchical relationships at the job. We're looking for passion, for purpose at their job. And I think that is why we're always complaining about there are not enough students in science, mathematics, and so on. But no wonder, because the image we have of these people who do this kind of study, we even have a vocabulary for it, freaks and geeks. You know, so we need to change the values, the perception of how such a job could look like. That young people again say, wow, that's cool. That's interesting, because they're on the computer gaming games and so on. It's all logical thinking and mathematical thinking. The skills are there. They're just not being tapped on. The kind of framework that is offered is not appealing to young people.
It seems it's less about you learning from the older generation, more the older generation learning from you.
I think it needs to go both ways. I think there is youth. Historically, sin has always been the holder of innovation. If you look at the great inventions, were always done by people in their 20s. Albert Einstein was 27 years old when he published the theory of relativity. But these inventions on themselves, or this creativity, is not going to lead us anywhere if you don't add the experience to it that is going to tap on that innovation, that is going to develop it, is going to think about how we can scale it, how we can bring elsewhere. And there, I think it's really the play, that we need to find a better equilibrium again.
Yeah. And how do you see that coming into being?
Well, personally, I'm very impressed by consulting companies who their main, I think, advantage is human capital. And they're making great efforts. I've been talking to some CEOs who have programs where they're thinking about offering fellowships, scholarships, to young people who are in their studies, who are committing to a social or environmental cause, who are volunteering next to it, offering them special internships and offering them a job afterwards, like a 2 or 3 year program where they can go and work 6 months on a social enterprise somewhere. And I think by doing that, they don't just really go a step further, tapping on that potential of young people, encouraging them to acquire the kind of skills that are going to be useful on the job afterwards. They're also changing the perceptions of young people, because the other ones who don't get the fellowship, they're going to be like, wow, look at the fellowship that guy got. Look at all the great opportunities, the job he got secured. And they're going to go and jump on that too. And I think that's the kind of change in culture we need from business coming, a valorization of the skills of youth and a valorization of the kind of opportunities that are there but not used sufficiently to acquire the skills Europe and the world needs to face the challenges we are facing right now.
Jerónimo Calderón from Euforia, thank you very much for joining us here on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.